It's along about coffee time this Saturday morning, June 27th, 2015, and this is Pense, Saskatchewan, looking eastward down the main line of the Canadian Pacific Railway, laid through here in 1882. And that's the last elevator. There was only ever 7 built here and only 5 standing at any one time. Unlike most prairie towns, Pense is not laid out perpendicular to the railway. It's cardinally laid out, and so we're looking due north up Elder Street. Pense doesn't even have a railway avenue. This is North Front Street. And it looks like you might be able to get a beer this morning, if not a cup of coffee. CPR Steel arrived here on August the 30th, 1882, which is a pretty exciting Wednesday. The station was built in 1883. In here it was a standard depot 1882 construction at mile 110.3 from Broadview on the Indian Head sub to Moose Jaw, which is 24.8 miles that way. The station was sold off in 1969 and it's in town somewhere used as storage, and I'm looking for it. The new RM office and regional fire hall on the corner of North Front. The RM was erected on January the 1st, 1913. The Carlton House guest house was right in this area. 2 stories of brick, topped with a mansard roof with dormers. It was an imposing structure. Demolished in 1943. The station would have stood right in here, I presume. The grounds host the cenotaph now, and maybe always did. Walk in history. And the west end of North Front Street. The Carlton House stood down at the end of the line there. There was 2-story hardware buildings and false fronts all along here. Livery barn stood right here where the gas bar is. Off to the left is Joe Fafard's Julien Atelier, where he does some of his bronze work. Looking due south down Brunswick at the cenotaph. Brunswick became Pence's main business street, a transition possibly hastened by the efforts of the winter arsonist of 1912-1913. An early cockshut dealership, Adams Wagon, stood right here. And this building has been standing here at least since the early 20s, probably the late teens, dressed in its fancy tin work. There's an old photograph of a group of Model Ts standing in the horse apples outside of Adams Wagons. And this building is in the background, looking pretty much like it does now. And the town hall. Also on Brunswick, right across from the tin building. The village was incorporated on March the 7th, 1904, and it became a town October 24th, 2012. Population is up to 532 come 2011. Completed in 1909 as All Saints Anglican. It might be made of claybank bricks. That famous brick factory is not too far away from here, maybe 60 rail miles south on the northern tip of the Dirt Hills. This was the second church built in town. The first was a Presbyterian church built right over here, and I believe that green gable is part of that old church. And looking east down Assiniboia Street, mostly British names in the cemetery there, and the one at Cottonwood Cemetery 5 miles to the north up on the old Grand Trunk Pacific line near Keystown. This might be the Presbyterian church, joined to the manse by possibly the remains of Cottonwood Presbyterian, which was built in the 1890s and demolished in 1998 after 30 years of being closed. looking south down Brunswick. And the new post office here on Assiniboia shares its roof with the town offices. Thomas Bull opened the Pense post office, likely in the parlor of his farmhouse a few miles north on November the 1st, 1883. He named it after E.J.B. Pense, who was the president of the Canadian Press at the time and who was among the party who witnessed the arrival of the steel in this neighborhood in 1882. And over on Manitoba Street is pretty Pense School, K to 8. The older kids bus it to the provincial capital of Regina for their classes, maybe 30K to the east on the Trans-Canada Highway. There was a school here since 1903, likely a 2-story brick effort, 4 rooms. And they have a turtle, but it's not Ernie. Ernie lives in Turtleford. Right across the street from the turtle, behind the rec center, and the splash park. Big fun here on a summer's day. Not today, though. Pense got off to sort of a slow start because even though settlers began arriving here in 1881, they mostly took up ranching because the implements of the time couldn't break up the heavy clays and silts that formed the bottom of glacial Lake Regina. At its core, this is Ogilvie Flour number 78, built in 1902 and rebuilt by Saskatchewan Wheat Pool in 1967. Combined with the knowledge of dryland farming techniques, the introduction of the steam traction engine and the big breaking plows of the 1900s helped turn this old lake bed into what used to be called Canada's breadbasket. The Spring Rice brothers were the first to build an elevator here in 1892. It burned in 1897 and they rebuilt right away. In 1900, Winnipeg Elevator Company built, 1902 Ogilvie, 1904 Crown Elevator Company, 1908 Conger and Company, and the last one to go up was Saskatchewan Cooperative Elevator in 1925. All gone but one, South Front Street in Pense, Saskatchewan.